What started so well for us 3 weeks ago has now become a disaster. With 7 people dead and more people struggling to survive, the life on Kepler 186f has not been as easy for us as we were hoping it would be. My name is Nikolai Arilano and I'm the engineer of this expedition in a solar system almost 300 light years away from Earth. We're the first extrasolar expedition to land and colonize this planet, and we were hoping we would be the first to establish a colony for the future of humanity. But with so many deaths and so much starvation and other problems facing us, we were not sure if we're going to survive one more day. What will happen to us, we'll find out in this video. Welcome to What the Math. This was day 27 and the light has finally come up. We would now be able to produce just a little bit more energy for our colony to try to store up some of it and possibly survive one more day. The water storage was low, the energy storage was low, and of course we still had very few food available to us. But the main priority for us right now was to try to create more spare parts and use the spare workshop to try to construct as many of these as we could so we can actually repair these broken wind turbines and solar panels that were starting to really cause a lot of trouble to us. And of course there was another death. Schutz Behar was a new arrival who only came here less than a day ago. He could not survive in these conditions. His body gave up, he could not simply move anymore, he just lay in his bed and passed away. We were completely devastated. We didn't know what to do. There was so many fatalities, so many people dying around us, and the base was completely going downhill. No more water, no more energy, and the lack of food. And the next was Harlow. She died quietly in her sleep in her bed as well, without ever raising an alarm. Nobody even knew she was dead until we checked in the morning. This was devastating. This was absolutely devastating. There were only 12 of us left. We were back with the same number of people that we started with before all of these new arrivals came to us. And what this made us feel is that we shouldn't have invited so many people. If we had not invited them to our colony, they would not be dead right now. This was all our fault. We called them, giving them hope that this was going to be a great life, but they ended up dying because of us. I was pacing up and down the hallway not knowing what to do. I was starving, but I was also completely devastated. All of this death was a result of our misplanning because we thought we could actually support more people than we could in reality. And what's worse, the food was not being produced quick enough. Because of the lack of water, the plants were actually suffering just as much as we were, and we're all started to be really hungry. I wasn't sure if I could last this day, and I wasn't sure what's going to happen to us because the night was coming again, our energy reserves were very low, and our panels were still broken with only one of the wind turbines working to its full capacity. This was possibly the end of this mission. This was possibly the end for some of us and possibly for me as well. I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to do anything else here except for possibly just leave our memories to the future expeditions and hopefully prevent them from making the same mistakes. The new biodome we've constructed was not doing anything for us because it lacked water, and the old biodome was barely surviving as well. And of course we had one more fatality. Bryony Wade, our biologist, died while working with mushrooms. She thought that tasting one because she was so hungry would be a good idea without realizing that this raw mushroom would be the end of her. She died of poisoning by eating this little mushroom because it needed to be actually prepared first in a meal maker that would neutralize all of its poisons. Nevertheless, with most of us completely starved, we could not really feel sad for her because we could be next. But many crazy ideas started to appear in our minds, including the idea of cannibalism. With the lights out, we didn't know what to do. We were going crazy, but of course we were more civilized than that. We would not resort to eating each other. We would simply have to try our best and create as much food out of the plants that we had as possible. And of course there was going to be a sandstorm to add to the horrible conditions we were in already. Another scream. Who was it this time? Oh no, another biologist died working with the mushrooms. Did she make the same mistake and try to eat it as well? It's very possible that she did the same. Maybe it was a suicide, maybe it was desperation. Ebony Koch died as well because she just couldn't handle it anymore. Many of us had the same idea. We didn't know if anything was going to happen, and unfortunately, I was next. My death came swift as well. I fell down on the floor and passed out. I was dead in minutes. light fading away from my eyes and into infinity. And unfortunately, these diaries you were listening to were created by my friends as a remembrance to what happened on this mission. Yes, these diaries were actually memoirs of their colony on Kepler 186f, because as you can imagine, the colony failed. All of us were dead within hours, and the entire colony was shut down by the next day. The last few survivors that were still alive could not really hope for salvation because unfortunately, with no spaceships coming to save them and no biologists to help them create more plants or more food, this was most likely going to be a doomed mission. The only survivors who were left were the 5 workers, the 2 engineers, and the 1 medic that were still trying to hold on to their lives and hoping for the best. But they all knew that without the botanical knowledge, they could not grow the mushroom pads or the rice pads or the maize. Neither could they actually try to create any of the meat in the tissue synthesizer because it required a lot of biological knowledge. They all gathered in the same hallway in our old canteen that we used for our meals for so many days and decided to sit down and just watch the news around the planet in the other colonies. They've transmitted the last message saying the colony was lost and sent the SOS message hoping that someone would come and save them. The Planet News transmitted the message to everyone, but we all knew that it was going to take more than 24 hours for anyone to reach our colony and to save us. The lights were finally out and more people started dying. Noreen and Tamara were next. They died together holding each other's hands and praying that one day someone might actually come and find their memories, hidden under their pillows in the dorm that we've all used to sleep in. But even though most of them knew that this was the end, Eva Butler decided to keep working. She thought that at least if she keeps working, it would keep her mind busy and her sanity intact, and she would not succumb to death like everyone else and possibly survive until the rescue mission arrives. But everyone knew that it was time for us to prepare the survival logs and to leave our memories for the people that will come to reclaim all of our memories and also our belongings to return them back to Earth. Those of us who stopped working decided that it was best for us to just relax and sit down in the canteen. Using the last few bits of energy, we were able to run the TV so that we can actually watch it and not go completely nuts. There were only 6 of us left, but we were holding on until the last moment, until the last breath, and we knew that even though we were probably going to die, at least we're going to die with our humanity intact, without resorting to any cannibalistic or any other crazy ideas that may have crossed our minds while we were completely starved. And ironically, having looked at our storage, we realized that we had so much metal, we had so many medicinal plants, but there was absolutely no food. How could we fail to stock up food when this was the most important resource for us to survive? But no one was to blame for this. Yes, of course we failed, and of course we were all going to perish, but we decided that with the last bits of breath and energy, we were going to try to write down the strategy for the next colony that decides to come to this planet and establish itself here. Learning from our failures and trying to avoid our mistakes would be absolutely essential for the next colony on this planet. And of course, our oxygen generator did not have any more energy left. Our oxygen levels started to slowly drop, and we started to feel that our breath was getting heavier and heavier with every hour. At this point, we didn't know if we're going to die of suffocation or of starvation, but we knew that it was very likely that nobody would come and save us, because even though we received a transmission from another colony saying that they were going to send a rescue ship, unfortunately that colony was over 30 hours away from us, and by the time they arrive, it's very likely that there's going to be no one left here. The oxygen levels were at 19%. This was very difficult for us. We could barely breathe, and we started to get really winded even walking down the hallway. And another fatality. Nolan House was yet another member to die of starvation. He was passed out on the floor, and we knew that he was finished. He was dead within minutes, as not only did he have no nutrition, but the oxygen levels here were so low that his body could not simply support itself anymore. And with the last engineer, Anna Cohen, dead, there was no more any hope for anyone to fix any of this. The only people left on this colony were the workers, and they didn't have any kind of a technical knowledge when it came to either fixing things or trying to build new buildings in order for them to actually try to make this work again. Everyone knew that this was the end. All 4 survivors spread themselves across the base, everyone picked a corner and everyone started praying, saying their goodbyes, writing their notes, and also just sitting in silence, remembering their old days and remembering the life before this. With Eva Butler gone, there were only 3 people left: Zed Lindgren, the worker, Helen Kerr, the medic, and TP Day, another worker. They were all also starved, they all were really tired and really thirsty, but at the same time, they've accepted their fate and knew that their hour would come as well. They've written their notes, they've finished writing down and logging in all of our successes and our failures, and have transmitted all of the data to the colony that was the closest to us in order for them to transmit it back to Earth. And with Helen Kerr passed out on the floor and completely devastated, Zed Lindgren was the last survivor. He spent his last few hours talking to the bot. He thought that logging all of his thoughts and his ideas, all of his memories to the bot would be the best way for him to preserve his memories and to try to tell everyone about the story of people on this colony. He was not angry, he was not depressed, nor was he sad, but he accepted his fate and he knew he was going to die. He tried to be very logical, he tried to be very precise and concise, and right before his death logged everyone's ideas, everyone's thoughts, everyone's names, and of course all of the successes of this mission into the little robot in order for it to be recovered by someone in the future and be used by someone else's colony somewhere else in the universe. And even though the colonists were dead, and even though we failed in constructing this colony, this was not the end of humanity. Other colonies on this planet were still growing, there were other success stories out there, and there was still hope for humanity to establish themselves on Kepler 186f and to begin a new life for the human race. But for Nikolai Arellano and his team, this was the end. Unfortunately, all of them perished, and except for the memories, nothing was left. Hopefully you enjoyed this series. Thank you for watching, please subscribe, like this video, and game you later. Bye bye.